Hi, everybody. My name's Lawrence Ross, and I'd like to welcome everyone to the Northwest Metro Cities Luncheon. Before we get the mundanities of the way, let's get the important stuff done. Could I have Jed Chappell, CEO of City Center, join me on stage, along with Air Force veteran and Snapology of Bethany owner Andrew Berrigan. They're going to lead us in the invocation and the pledge.
Thank you for having me this morning. Let's go ahead and pray. God, we thank you so much for this wonderful food we've experienced this morning. We also thank you so much for this opportunity to share the incredible fortune we have to live in this incredible city. We pray you'd bless the conversations we have, the stories that we're going to hear as well. We thank you so much for the time we're going to share together. It's in your name we pray. Amen. Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, sir.
So as you know, we always have some housekeeping at these events. The first thing I want to do is I want to thank our sponsors for today, SRB, Civil Engineering Group, the City of Warr Acres. I also want to thank a table sponsor, LWPB Architecture. Now, if you folks will just bear with me, I have different notes. I seem to have lost my notes. I do apologize. So the first thing I want to do is introduce some special guests. We have Millie Deemy representing County Commissioner Kevin Calvey. Michael Taylor is representing, oh my goodness, Brian Mon, County Commissioner, District 2. We got to keep it lively, right? We have some other folks that I'm just going to see and name them off. Estela Hernandez, representing Senator Langford's office. State Representative Marilyn Stark. Tammy West is also here. And we have some mayors, but I'll let them talk for themselves. Some additional folks that we have available. I know we have the Vice Mayor, John Knipp, with the City of Warr Acres, Councilman Roger Goodwin. I think I saw the Vice Mayor of the village sneak in, did I? There he is. Hi, Adam. So if I have forgotten anyone, I do apologize very much. Silence on the microphone. It can't be allowed. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our first mayor today. I can't tell you when I first met Mayor Floyd, but I can tell you that she serves the city of Bethany in her current capacity and also served the city of Bethany prior to that. Mayor Lloyd, could you join us, please?
Hello, thank you all for having me today. What a wonderful event. Can we just give a round of applause to the chamber? What an incredible job. Appreciate staff putting this together for all of us. Okay, well, we have got some exciting things happening in Bethany right now, and we have so much going on, I had to make a list. So I will reference that so I hopefully do not forget anything. And like we talked about, I will try not to speak super quickly. I have a tendency to do that. So 2021, as you all know, it's had its fair share of challenges, but it's also been a year of growth for Bethany. Council, city staff, and citizens are working hard together in a multitude of ways. I see Arlita Harris here, Ms. Harris through BIF. They've been working on the Veterans Plaza, Route 66 Veterans Plaza, that's going to be on Route 66, and we're excited about that. We also have a lot of development happening through, sorry guys, my allergies are a little nuts today. Breathing is apparently hard. So we have the Children's Center and Southern Nazarene University, and we're very proud of both of those institutions. And they have a lot of development going on right now. And so we're really excited about that. If you hadn't seen it, the Children's Center just dedicated the Miracle Ballpark, and it's incredible. And it really touched my heart at that event, and it was an exciting thing to see. So if you haven't been to the Children's Center in a while, I would definitely encourage you to stop by and visit. So I will jump straight into my list. Through the efforts of council, staff, and our Bethany Economic Development Authority, we're making great strides in the area of economic development. Currently, we have over 80,000 square feet under construction and much more to come. So we're proud of that. We're working to improve delivery, quality, and quantity of our water with a recently approved pilot program meant to clear naturally occurring arsenic from our 3 Garber-Wellington water wells. And so I think that that's important, not necessarily exciting, but water independence is a big deal. It's an option that not a lot of cities have. And so we're excited to continue to explore that, increasing our water independence, and potentially even having an additional revenue source for the city in the future. Our recently formed GeoBond committee is up and running and set to provide a list of items to council that we hope to get on the ballot around spring of next year. Our charter review committee is hard at work putting together a list of changes and additions that will improve our city charter. Thanks to our incredible city manager, Elizabeth Gray, we've provided a brand new employee handbook and updated internal policies that actually hadn't been changed since the 1990s, so it's been a minute. We instituted an Adopt a Spot beautification program, and that allows businesses and individuals to partner with the city and beautify small public spaces of their own and just kind of have a little piece of Bethany that they can maintain and be proud of. We're working on a film-friendly program to encourage film production in Bethany. I think this is great because it really highlights all of the things that Bethany has to offer, and we do have a lot to offer. So our community development director, Amanda McClellan, has taken head on that project, and we're really excited about it. Last year, we brought back the Freedom Fest Parade, and we had a record turnout, and we're excited for this next year. We have 18 holes of disc golf coming to Eldon Lyon Park. Now, I don't know if you've played disc golf. I haven't yet, but I've heard really good things about it, so I can definitely see some competitions in our future in disc golf. Our animal shelter is hard at work and constantly improving our shelter program. Recently, we implemented microchipping and a new vaccination program. We've been upgrading and replacing equipment in our Public Works Department, including a brand new grapple truck that will better enable us to deal with storm damage in the future. Our police department is being fully equipped with body cams this year, which I think, yes, woo, that's a big deal. Especially, I think, in today's times, it not only protects everyone that they deal with, but the police officers as well. So we're really excited about that program. We're working to improve communication with Bethany residents. We have our website and social media platforms, and we've also re-implemented Government Access Channel 20 and a bilingual newsletter. Our council chambers are currently being remodeled to provide better ADA access. I haven't had coffee yet today, you guys. I really just need some coffee. We saw a population increase of 1,780, so we are now at almost 21,000 residents in Bethany. We have some exciting developments coming to our Route 66 district over the next few years, so be on the lookout for that. And I'm almost done reading my long list. After dealing with 2 historic ice storms that covered our city in debris and wreaked havoc on our sewer system, we're coming through to the other side with limbs cleaned up, lines repaired, and a plan of attack to build a long-term plan that will, over time, repair or replace our aging infrastructure system. And if you have dealt with anything underground on a municipal level, you know how important that is. As city officials, our main job is quality of life. That's what we do. That's what we're here to provide. So these items aren't really exciting conversation starters. I don't know many people that say, let's have a conversation about, sewers and poop. But that is what we do. Those are the items that we talk about. They're not necessarily fun, but we all know, I think, how important it is to be able to wake up and brew your coffee and flush your toilet. All of those things, that's what we do. That's where our heart is. These are the things that keep a city healthy, growing, and moving forward, and expect to see great things coming out of Bethany in the future. Thank you so much.
I am terrible at reading from a script, as you guys saw, so I'm just not. I had an opportunity to do a leadership class with Mayor Mickley, and I'm excited to hear what the city of Warr is doing. Come on up, Jim.
He's going to make the guy with the new knee walk the farthest. Jill, thank you very much for having us here. We appreciate it. The only thing I hate worse than giving a speech before David Holt is giving one after David Holt. You asked us to talk for about 5 minutes. That's never a problem for a mayor. It's getting us to shut up after 5 minutes that's the problem. I'm going to go back a little bit before 2020. I took over for our former mayor, Pat Woolley, in a midterm. I did a good thing when we started out. I helped pass a TIF district, which was very beneficial to our city. I also did a very, maybe not so good thing, is we passed a bond issue. A bond issue is a good way to lose 45% of your voting block. We had the lowest tax rate of anybody in the metro area, and we lost revenue from a Walmart that left town, became a pizza place. We lost an Albertsons, which became a car wash. We lost a Hobby Lobby, which became a church. None of those pay taxes. We thought if we passed a bond issue every 60 years, that may not be a big deal. Our last bond issue we passed was in 1962. So you wouldn't think that would be all that big a problem, but it was. With a lot of help, we got it passed. A lot of help from the chamber, a lot of help from Jill. We got this passed. Warr survived the pandemic. We had very few deaths in Warr. I had the COVID. It was not fun whatsoever. I never want to go there again. There were very difficult days, very difficult decisions. Hopefully most of that is behind us. Our TIF district we passed was at 36th Street to 39th Street on MacArthur, and 50th and MacArthur and 63rd and MacArthur, and also on Northwest Expressway. On our bond issue, our first bond issue was for a police department or with a municipal courtroom, and we'd never had a municipal courtroom before of our own. We also did a new fire department and a new animal shelter. Our second was for residential streets with a $2 million project, $500,000 for each of our 4 wards. Our residential streets came in less than we thought it would, and we were able to do many more streets than what we thought we could do to begin with. We're also doing a widening on MacArthur. It's about an $8 million project with new storm drains, and we're also doing the 39th Street drainage. If it sprinkles in Warr, that floods. So that's going to be much better than what it ever was. Our new municipal courtroom is our new police department and municipal courtroom are now done. We're waiting on our 911 equipment. People think that if they call 911, they'd like somebody to answer on the other end of it. Most of our furniture is installed. Our animal control building is complete. The dogs love it. I was in there the other day. I heard one of them call it the Dog Mahal, so I thought we did good. It was a night and day project from what we had to begin with. We had to remodel our old community center, which became our new city hall. We tore down the old city hall, and that's where our new fire station is going. The roof is going on this week. It should be closed in by next week. So we're hoping to make this a nice Christmas present for our fire department. Our employee outlook is so much better than what it was before. Our old buildings were from the 60s and definitely need to be replaced. On our economic development, we have a new Hispanic grocery store, 55,000 square foot grocery store going in at 36th and MacArthur. This should be ready in July. We have 3 new businesses coming in by the 7-Eleven on the expressway. Will be a Scooter's Coffee, a Jack in the Box, and a Salads to Go. Where old Long John Silver's was, we've got a new business coming in there. Beside the Shipley's Donuts, we'll have a new business coming in there. Between the Zaxby's and the Whataburger, we have a new business coming in there. We've got 2 more businesses coming in on 39th Street. So our economic development is very good. Our taxes are actually up over last year and the year before. Our taxes were actually up during COVID, which shocked me totally. Our overall citizen response is good. If I can keep 51% of the people happy, I'm in good shape. I appreciate your time. Thank you, Jill. Thank you, the Northwest Chamber.
You're not alone, Jim. I still have that new hip, so coming up those things, I feel you, brother. So I had an opportunity because one of the things that the Northwest Chamber does is we work with our local municipalities, and we try and at least once a month, or as their schedule allows, kind of get a briefing of how their community's going. And the last time that I had an opportunity to go to the one for the village, I was just blown away at what the folks over there are doing. But I don't want to steal Mayor Wilkinson's thunder, so Sonny, would you come up and talk to us about it?
Well, I will start by saying if Warr Acres thought every 60 years was enough for a bond issue, the village thought no bond issue was a great idea, and we got what we paid for on that. So I'm happy to say, and I'm going to back up a little bit here on that, in 2018, the council worked really hard recognizing our infrastructure was having some serious issues. Roads were starting to fail, drainage was horrible. So we passed our first ever bond issue for our city. And it's been transformative, and we're finally seeing the fruits of that. We have new residential roads going in. Every park in the city has gotten redone or is in the process of getting redone. There's more phases to come on that. And at the same time, we passed a 1/4-cent sales tax. And that has been also a huge game changer for the council when we go to budget, because we have money to put towards things now. And so the city is just truly transforming. I think everybody in here is familiar with the Britain Road project and how wonderfully smoothly that went. We got through it. Sorry for that. But we had to do it, and we hope we don't have to do that one again for a while. But that was part of all of that. So as we look at where we are now, the city is just remarkable and amazing. I don't think it's been ever as healthy. Our sales tax revenues are also up. God bless the use tax. That has been huge for cities. And just a really big boost for us. Where we're looking, where we're going, the council just approved a plan for the area around the Love's corporate campus, and we're so lucky to have a corporation like that in our city who worked with us. We established a TIF district, and so in the next couple of years, we're going to create a whole new civic area around City Hall and the Love's campus right there at Hefner and Penn. We'll have a new civic park. We're going to reduce Vineyard Boulevard right there to 2 lanes, put in a new park that goes along there. The area around the library is going to have a senior workout center and new areas for patrons to the library to come outside and receive some of that programming. It'll be about a $10 million project that we hope to start, I hope, Adam, I don't know, that we can get all that approved and going this coming spring, and that'll take a couple of years to do, but we're so excited about that. Our dogs are very happy in the village as well, because we're putting a dog park in with that, and we too just really rebuilt our animal shelter, kind of rehabbed it and added on to it. And that was a huge effort for us and some volunteers who came together to really improve life for all of our pets in the village. We also, look at community health and what we can do there. And so sidewalks are going in across the city, connecting all of our parks, putting in bike trails to also enhance connectivity there, hopefully getting those to the lake. We're working on that plan. That's going to take more than us, but Oklahoma City and the county and ODOT, but really working towards that as well, and some other community partners to build out, I can't say, but some pretty significant changes there. One thing we recently passed that I think is worth pointing out to this group is a new business improvement incentive package that the City Council approved to not only work with new businesses coming in, but recognizing we've got a lot of great businesses in the village, we have a lot of great shopping centers, so working with those owners to incentivize updates to those centers, providing dollars from the city to do those improvements. Very excited about that. We're also working on safer neighborhoods, working on a new bike patrol with our police department, put in speed humps, which everybody around them loves, everybody else who drives through the neighborhoods hates, but they don't vote for me, so I'll go for it. And we've invested more in our police training, and also took a hard look at how we handle policing and how we handle people that come into our custody, and broke away from Oklahoma County and signed a new contract with Midwest City to send anybody arrested on municipal charges to that jail instead. So, all the exciting things of city government. So where are we going? We too are working on a new bond issue that we hope we can pass next year. Bonds are super fun, and you shouldn't do them every 60 years. You should do them a little more frequently. We took the lead of Oklahoma City on that one. So looking at improving our sewage, more roads, sidewalks, parks, neighborhood lighting as well. We want to put Wi-Fi in all of our parks. Adam and another council member have been working with Embark to bring public transportation to the village. We got tired of the village being a donut hole on a map. I talked to David Holt about this a couple of years ago. I said, man, Oklahoma City's doing great stuff, but when you look at the map, there's like this donut hole and it's the village right in the middle, so we got to work on this. And so all of our efforts have been put towards that, and it's never been a better time to be in the village, we believe, for what we have going on. And before I sit down, I do want to thank Mayor Holt, because Oklahoma City is working on the areas around us, and the Britton Road Corridor being one of those, and that will be a huge game changer for us because that's an entryway into our city. And the last thing I will say, the most famous thing the village is ever on the news for is our wonderful mow your grass signs. We got rid of those, so maybe a little more welcoming as a city too. So anyway, come see us sometime. Thanks.
Thank you. For our next speaker, I want to make sure that our tech team has panned back so we can get all that. Okay. The mayor of Oklahoma City, David Holt, leads our community by example, and he's someone that I've gotten to know and am proud to know him. So I'll let him tell you all the great things, although I think the big announcement this morning may already be spoiled, David.
Well, it's great to be with you. You know, we've all lived through this like weird rip in time, and so I know the Northwest Chamber has probably had some events in the last. Can you hear me okay? I like to use my hands. You know, I'm sure you guys have had some events in the last few weeks and months, but I haven't been at them, so I haven't, felt connected to you guys in this way for a couple years. Just seeing Lori and Jill, just doing the math, that we probably haven't been in a room together in that period of time, which is always kind of weird and jarring, but it's the reality. So it is great to be back together with you in a venue, by the way, that many of us, if we've lived in Northwest Oklahoma City, are very familiar with. My mom used to take me and some friends here for my birthday. That would be one of our treats, was to spend the night here at the Marriott. And it's been great to see it reinvented and reinvigorated now as an Embassy Suites, and very grateful to the Patel family for taking on that investment, because this is kind of an institution in our little corner of the world. Always an honor to be here with mayors, council members, city officials from our friends and neighbors. We have a very unique geographic situation in Oklahoma City, where Oklahoma City surrounds these other communities on all four sides, and so we gotta get along, I could probably invade them, but they could probably take us down from the inside if they wanted to. So we really gotta find a working relationship. And I would say in this remarkable, hopefully once in a century experience that we just went through, we worked so well together, and we created a text group, of all the mayors, not just from Northwest Chamber, but from the whole metropolitan area, and really, especially at the height of the pandemic in the spring and summer of 2020, really worked together and in concert, and had very few communities in the metropolitan area that didn't do the same thing. And every single time, I'll make one special call out, every single time I would do a press conference, and if it had anything to do with something that the city was going to do, before I had hit the floor from coming down the steps, I'd have a text from Mayor Mickley saying, "We're on board, we're doing it, Warr Acres has got you back." And that was always most welcome. And look, Mayor Bynum, my friend in Tulsa, we tried to work very closely together, but the reality is, like I only am mayor of about half the people, who live in the Oklahoma City metro. So if I didn't have that partnership with our neighboring communities, we wouldn't really make the public health impact that we hope to make. And in Tulsa, he did not have his mayors texting him by the time he had walked off the stage. If they were saying something quite different. So I've always felt very blessed, because he went through a long period of time, if you followed the news out of Tulsa, where he was struggling with trying to bring their numbers down. Our numbers were much better than even the community in Tulsa. They were much, much better than the state, and it kind of goes without saying, right? But they were also much better than Tulsa, and I think a primary reason was that our whole community, not just the city of Oklahoma City, was making an effort. And by the way, I'll touch on this only briefly. I want to talk about other things, but numbers are plummeting right now. I choose my words carefully when it comes to COVID, but I think the P word here is appropriate. We're down to 215 cases in our 7-day rolling average, and that is down 74% from where we were at our height about a month and a half ago, So, yeah, Jill wants to applaud that, and let's let her. Big reason for that is we're little late bloomers to this, but now we are well vaccinated, and we are better vaccinated than the national average. And I want you to really internalize that, okay? There's a county in Oklahoma that is above the national average on vaccinations. Somebody deserves a Nobel Prize for that. We are at 80% of all adults now have gotten at least their first shot. And really, we're almost at 80% of all eligible people, so that's ages 12 and up, have gotten at least their first shot. So there's always, on this issue and so many others, there's always noise at the extremes, and you can always feel like somehow your viewpoint has put you on some sort of an island, and that's why I love stats like that, because it illustrates the vast majority of people in Oklahoma City believe that this is safe and that this is the right thing to do. And now, since Delta, that number, obviously, as I alluded to a moment ago, has come up significantly as the people who had been slow to adopt finally saw that there's probably reason to do this, and now we're in a position where it's brought those numbers down, and barring a variant that is resistant to the vaccine, we ought to be in pretty good shape, and we can kind of forget about this. That would be the hope. I mean, it will always I don't know that we'll ever get to functional zero, but there was a time in June when we were at 15 new cases per day, and that would be a nice place to be at again. And with the way things are going, I think we could be there soon. So let me talk a little bit about Oklahoma City, and I think we've got certainly have some time for questions. I'll just kind of give an overview of where I think we are right now, and then I know you want to get out of here by 1 or even a few minutes before, so we'll accommodate that for sure. And I'm the last thing, right, Lori, Jill? Okay. So you would expect a mayor to give you a glowing and optimistic report, and so I recognize you're going to assume that is colored somehow. But I would say everything I'm going to relate to you is absolutely true. It's verifiable, and it really is a very good time to live in Oklahoma City. And I think today's announcement that was just referenced is just another example in sort of a parade of really cool, fun announcements that we've had in the last few weeks and months. And we deserved, some good news for after the year, 18 months that we went through. So right now in Oklahoma City, number one lowest unemployment, in the entire nation, at least among large cities. I recognize that for business owners, that is oddly a challenge, right? I mean, for a mayor, that's something we like to brag about, but at the same time, I recognize that when everybody has a job, it's very hard to fill vacancies. You put a sign out and there's nobody looking because everybody is employed. That is kind of a goal mayors have. You don't want people to be unemployed, but and you want to create enough jobs for all of them. But right now, that's challenging. I know it's challenging everywhere, but I think when you're number one in unemployment, lowest unemployment, you have even more of a challenge. Fortunately, we have a lot of people moving here. So, hopefully that continues to release some of that pressure. And that was another piece of good news that we received in the last couple of months was our census data. 22nd largest city in the United States, which is really quite remarkable. I mean, we were 31st 10 years ago. And when you get to the top 30, I mean, you're in the big boys now, right? You don't see people jumping 9 slots like that. But we did. We were one of only 14 cities in the United States to add 100,000 people. So that's just in our city limits. That wouldn't be in Warr Acres and Nichols Hills and the Village and Bethany. But they obviously, I'm sure, had their own significant growth in their communities as well. So we're seeing this tremendous growth. Again, hopefully alleviates a little bit of the pressures that low unemployment put on a community. We're getting new people in to take these jobs, and we're still working to create more jobs. We always want to have better jobs because of our size, because of our economic success, because of our quality of life and low cost of living. We're seeing a lot of opportunities. I feel like every day I'm a pitch man. I mean, that's part of the job. You might assume that to be the case. But you can't just cold call people or just knock on random doors of corporations in California. I mean, you can do a little bit of that maybe, but it's not going to be as effective. I mean, you got to have some level of interest on both sides, and we're seeing that more and more and more. And we've got a really, well-oiled machine when it comes to economic development in Oklahoma City, a partnership with the Greater Oklahoma City Chamber of Commerce and the Alliance for Economic Development and Oklahoma City staff. And, we meet with people all the time. And I was just a couple days ago with a group of site locators. So their whole job is just to go out and look for cities and, that their clients might want to expand into or relocate to. And, we're just seeing more and more of these types of opportunities. I feel like my calendar continues to fill up. And, you win some, you lose some. But I think we're going to have more and more big announcements coming up in the years ahead, just based on this momentum that we have right now. People are, wanting to move into the interior United States from the coast for any number of reasons and do more business here. And because of the investments we've made over the last 25 years, we're setting ourselves apart. Because there's lots of cities between Mexico and Canada, right? I mean, you could go to Omaha, you could go to Wichita, but people are coming here because there's clear differentiation between what's happening in Oklahoma City and happening in most of those other cities. Texas has been a popular destination, but they're kind of saturated, right? Their quality of life has begun to degrade in their cities because it's just so many people, so much growth. Maybe that'll be our problem someday, but right now we don't have that. It's still a great ease of living here and low traffic, and we want to maintain that. We'll have to stay ahead of the infrastructure needs of population growth. That's an issue as well, and we've got conversations about the Regional Transit Authority and other things to make sure that we're keeping up. Obviously, you dump 100,000 people in Oklahoma City, as we have over the last 10 years. There are some ramifications for that. But what I always tell people is, because there is that kind of some reaction of, I don't want anyone to move here. And I get that, but the reality is you can't have a city that people want to live in that nobody moves to. You just can't have it both ways. If you don't want people to move here, there's a way to accomplish that. We tried that in the 80s and 90s. It wasn't so great, right? So it's kind of, you kind of can't have it both ways. So I accept and embrace population growth and celebrate it, but at the same time knowing that there are secondary issues that are caused by that, and we at City Hall have to work on that and stay ahead of that. So, strong economic news with low unemployment rate, strong census data. Here at City Hall, and I don't know what the mayor said about this, but I get the Tribune every month, and they always have that cool graphic. I don't know if anybody here is from the Tribune, but they've got that great graphic about sales tax. I find that we don't have that otherwise. I take a picture of that every month and send it to the city manager because it's a great look at how all the metropolitan communities are doing. Our sales tax checks, we're on our fifth straight month of a record sales tax check. The top 5 sales tax checks in city history are the last 5 that we have received at the city of Oklahoma City. Now, obviously you would expect, in theory, every sales tax check would be slightly bigger than the last one, just from population growth, economic growth, and inflation. But it doesn't work that way. It comes up and down, up and down. And so for us to have that continued growth over the last 5 months is really tremendous, especially after what we all went through in 2020. So that allows us, obviously, to provide core services, because that money largely goes to police and fire and all the other services you expect from the city. But I also throw it out there as an economic indicator to you. That's a good sign when sales tax receipts are high, because it shows people are out and about and they're shopping, and we've got a nice churn to the economy right now. The other thing that I think is worth mentioning is just how many good news headlines we're getting right now in terms of new things opening, groundbreakings, ribbon cuttings. I don't want you to ever take that for granted. There are not every community in the United States has that same experience. We made a decision in Oklahoma City in 1993 to start investing in ourselves, right? And it can feel like at Oklahoma City it's just a maps machine, but the reality is it's just about 10% of our budget goes to maps. But that 10% has made all the difference, And so with all those maps investments, which we have continued to roll out from MAPS 3 over the last 2 or 3 years and still have a few more to go, you also see that private sector answer, So even the announcement today not being a MAPS project, it's all because of MAPS. It all is either directly from MAPS or spin-off from MAPS. And it creates an environment where you just always have something to look forward to. And we're always cutting ribbons and breaking ground and making announcements. And I'm just off the top of my head, just thinking about the last 6 weeks. The opening of the Homeland in northeast Oklahoma City. And that may seem like a small thing. Many of us are blessed to have lots of grocery stores around us. I think I have 7 full-service grocery stores within 2 miles of my house. But that community in northeast Oklahoma City did not have, they had 0 grocery stores that were accessible to them. I mean, that's a fabulous grocery store, and that was a big effort over really 30 years to make that happen. That was a very happy day. Same month, we opened a new expansion at the airport. I don't know if you've seen that. I've experienced it 2 or 3 times now, and it's awesome. And it's a great new front door for our city, provides great amenities to travelers, and also adds gates, so we never have to say no to anybody. You know, we're getting more and more interest on nonstop destinations. We're up to 27 now here that you can fly to directly from Oklahoma City, and we don't ever want to be in a position where somebody's asking us, an airline is asking us to add a nonstop and we don't have a gate. We've added more gates as well to the amenities that we improved upon in the visitor experience. And then you had the opening of FAM and First Americans Museum. So that is incredibly unique and special. And I know that it went on for so long over the course of 30 years that people sort of forgot to be excited about it. And I found, over the course of the last year, I would say, hey, the First Americans Museum is opening. What was once known as the American Indian Cultural Center. And sometimes people would react, oh, I thought that was never happening. Is that really happening? I say, yeah, they're working on it right now. I can't wait for you to see it. So it's $175 million, and it looks it. I mean, it's fabulous. It's a Smithsonian-level institution. I actually got to go last Friday. I'd been 15 years ago, but I wanted to see it, in light of FAM's opening. I went to the National Museum of the American Indian on the National Mall, and I think ours is as good or better. And in any case, there's only 2, like this in the world. And we have the credibility of being in Oklahoma. People don't go to Washington to learn about Native culture. That's maybe something they would pop in on their way to the Air and Space Museum. But they'll come to Oklahoma because we have credibility on this issue. So this is a really, truly unique, one-of-a-kind amenity. And it presents the Native and Indigenous story in such a powerful way. It's very impactful. It's very well told. It's well communicated. I mean, I think it's got heart because it's really being told by Native Americans. The whole curatorial staff there is Native. But it's also very accessible to people who aren't. And it's just really fantastic. I hope you get to check it out very soon. And then, of course, we had the announcement today of the development around it. And people kind of knew, that was a deal cut 6 years ago, that if the Chickasaws helped finish it and helped fund the operations, that they would get the development rights around it, which seemed like a win-win because I knew they do high-quality development work. And so people kind of knew maybe that was coming, but I think getting to see the pictures, hear the details, and really get a much more concrete sense of what is going to happen there makes it all, come to life. And so you got, if you hadn't heard, 400-room hotel, indoor-outdoor water park, conference facilities, retail dining. I mean, it's really a destination. You could park your car there Friday night and not need to even leave the site until Sunday night. And if you did want to go to Bricktown or the Riversport area, there's boats that'll take you there. There's will be pedestrian access to those places. So it's really, amazing how much Oklahoma City is changing. And you think about other things that have opened farther back than the last 6 weeks this year. I mean, the $300 million convention center, the Omni, just before that, Scissortail Park, the streetcar linking all of that to downtown. I mean, we've created a meeting destination in downtown Oklahoma City that is unrivaled among cities our size when you put all those pieces together. And you're going to see more and more national meetings coming here that wouldn't have otherwise given us a look. And so the visitor economy is becoming so much more a piece of the economic pie here in Oklahoma City. I mean, it used to just be a place that you slept at if you were driving from Little Rock to Albuquerque, but now you've got reason to come here and stay here for a few days. We have so many different attractions and, again, the facilities as well to accommodate meetings. And if you're on, by the way, we find that there's people all across this community that are on the national board of such and such, and maybe that's not a household name, and maybe their involvement in that organization is not well known to their friends and neighbors, but that's a group that brings 2,000 people every year to some annual meeting, and so please consider, selling Oklahoma City if you have those kind of connections. I mean, we have a team that does this for a living, and we'll definitely compete in those circles. But at the same time, I've found that it's interesting how far you can get just by having a vocal participant in some of these organizations on the inside. So please keep that in mind. With that, I mean, there's just so much else I could go on and on about. We got First National Center. It's going to open sometime probably before the end of the year or shortly into 2022. That's another $200 million project. That's very exciting. And then, of course, we have MAPS 4. So that passed at the end of 2019. That's another $1 billion of projects coming into our community. 16 different projects, and as you may recall, 70% of all of it is going into neighborhood and human needs. So it's really going to be visible all across the city from edge to edge, corner to corner. Every single neighborhood park, for example, is getting a refurbishment. Youth centers, lots of things, and more than I could talk about today. But it just goes to show that for another decade, thanks to the commitment of the people of Oklahoma City, we got cool things to look forward to. We've got investments coming into our community that we're making that are oftentimes matched by outsiders and other investors locally who want to see great things happen here and want to make money here, and that's what we want to accommodate. So thank you so much for this time today, and as I said, there's a few more minutes. I'd love to take some questions. Thank you, Jennifer. But that doesn't mean I can't take a question. You merely applauded the speech. Now we'll see how the questions go.
With all the addition of the new convention center, the convention center you just spoke about, hotel rooms, where does that help us, or are we ever trying to actually land an NBA All-Star game?
Oh, okay. NBA All-Star game. Great question. I get that from time to time. So, what I have seen of the hotel requirements for an NBA All-Star game, it's staggering. And there's a reason that the NBA All-Star game has traditionally only happened in a few places. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but they require a certain number of hotel rooms that would be at the level of an Omni or a Skirvin or a 21C. And that number is multiples of what we currently have. And even the addition of 600 rooms at the Omni just barely made a dent in that requirement. So I think it would be challenging. I'm always open to having that conversation, but it's really never gotten anywhere because of that. They've got like a manual for what they expect in a host city, and right there we just don't even come close to the hotel rooms that they require. But who knows? There's lots of things I never expected we would be talking about in Oklahoma City through the years. So maybe just around the corner we'll be having those kinds of conversations. Yes, ma'am.
With the new resort, and then also today there was a story about a Texas franchise with food trucks and trucks down by the land run, down by the river by the land run statue.
Okay. Well, I'm not as familiar with the second thing. It sounds like something I should know about, but you'd be surprised. There's so much going on. Sometimes I don't know everything, but parking in general. I mean, you mentioned the end of the land run. That actually happens to be where we have an ocean of parking that really never fills up. But that is kind of the last place that people park when on a really busy Bricktown night. At the new resort, there's a parking garage. I didn't mention that because it wasn't sexy, but there is a parking garage component of that development, and obviously they want everybody to be able to park on site for something like that. There's sometimes when you're building special event facilities, you don't worry as much about parking because people are more used to maybe parking and riding a shuttle or that kind of thing. But for this, I think they would expect to have adequate parking, and they've got it. Now that's speaking directly of the resort. I don't get parking as a question as much as mayors used to in Oklahoma City because I think people have just gotten better at doing it, and they know where they've got their places, and they kind of got the game figured out downtown now. And because what mayors used to say when asked about Bricktown parking, they used to be like the circa 2012. That was like all any mayor of Oklahoma City had to deal with was getting asked about parking in Bricktown. But they would usually say, which was true, that we'd never filled all our parking garages in the history of the city. But people just weren't using them, right? There's kind of a mentality in Oklahoma City that I think is fading, where it was always like, well, parking is parking in front of the door for free. Yeah. Parking in a garage for $10 2 blocks away, no, that's not parking, Well, that's what you offer in an urbanized environment, right? So I'm sure half of the people in this room circled this lot about 3 times, just trying to get the perfect spot, I get it. I'm from here too. So, but the reality is, what's that? Right. There's plenty of parking downtown, but I think people have gotten better at it. And also, I would point out, for the people who have a little bit of time, like they're making a night of it, going to a concert or a Thunder game, a really fun thing to do is to park on 10th Street and get the streetcar, down to the arena. And that was part of the idea behind the streetcar, was it's sort of expanding the parking map to all of downtown. Yes, sir.
Are you confident that your relationship with Tinker Air Force Base is on the right path?
I think so. If you look at it historically over the last many decades, we have won every time that we've gone through one of these realignment processes. We always end up with more business than before. And there's so much going on that what I'm about to talk about should be, at the top of any list, but it's just hard to remember it all. But we just made the announcement, a couple months ago that we're going to work with Tinker to expand the base to the east, closing Douglas and giving more room for growth and more security, because they've actually had to use Douglas occasionally to move stuff because they've got some other facilities on the east side of it. And that's not ideal environment. That's an unsecure situation. They've left the base basically with a plane or something, and they have to protect it. So that's always been a touchy issue, because it's like, wow, we're closing a city street. There are some people. There's nobody affected by it directly. There's no homes or businesses on that street. But there are people who use it to get from point A to point B, and they're not going to be able to do that anymore. But that's how strong our commitment is to Tinker. And so I think the Air Force is very impressed by our commitment to doing this. And, every few years we've had the opportunity to express our support one way or the other. The county, Oklahoma County, famously a decade ago or so, did a tax to acquire the GM factory and basically gift it to them, and they're making great use of it. And so, we'll keep doing that. This is a community, obviously, that greatly values Tinker Air Force Base, both from a symbolic standpoint. We're patriotic. We like being a part of the nation's defense. But obviously, from an obvious economic standpoint, it's our single largest employer. And I think city leaders always are aware of that, even if the general public forgets about it from time to time if they're not interacting with it on a regular basis. But that has become really important to us, especially with the waning importance of oil and gas in our community. We've been able to, I think, fill it up with aerospace, a lot of which is spinning off from what's happening at Tinker. I mean, think about the fact that until recently, this wasn't a great 18 months for oil and gas prices, and yet we had the lowest unemployment in the country. Those two things did not correlate in the 1980s, But we have a much more diversified economy now, and Tinker's a big part of that. Yes, ma'am.
What do you see as the Metro's biggest challenge moving forward? Lots of good news, but we do have challenges. What do we really need to focus attention and solve right now?
A couple things come to mind. One is public education, and mayors in Oklahoma have nothing to do with that technically. And in our community, I have 24 school districts in the city limits of Oklahoma City, which is insane. But I'm not likely to get to change that. But I also have no operational relationship with any of those school districts. They operate independently. They have their own school boards. Tammy used to be on one. They have 24 superintendents. So, Tammy's district isn't even named after a real place. It's a mythical place, Putnam City. No, it's fair enough. It's better than a real place, Jennifer. It's a wonderland. But it's still a big issue, and it's a challenge that mayors and city leaders should be focused on. And so, interestingly, if you had attended my late February 2020 State of the City address, I dedicated a not insignificant part of that speech to my desire and intent to spend 2020 on one issue alone, and that was convening this community around a conversation about public education to really replicate what we had done as a city 20 years before. If you can believe it's been 20 years since Maps for Kids. And Maps for Kids was the result of a multi-year community-wide conversation by a task force called Project Kids that had like 75 named people on it. And Maps for Kids, the investment in buildings, was actually really just an element of that. And anyways, I just thought we should do that again, and I thought a mayor of Oklahoma City was uniquely positioned to convene the education establishment, the philanthropic leaders, people like Jennifer, the business community, and elected officials. February 27th was when I delivered that speech, and I articulated what I planned to do in 2020. Well, 2020 had different ideas about what I was going to be focused on and how I was going to spend my time, and the education system was uniquely challenged. And, the last thing we could talk about was, future visions for public education when schools weren't even meeting anymore, right? So that was tabled, but it matters, and I definitely would like to revisit that in the future, and I still think I can play a role there. And again, I think it's a convening role, but it needs to be convened. So the other thing, though, I think that we'll continue to deal with in Oklahoma City is obviously our unique service infrastructure needs related both to our size and to the population growth that I was just articulating. So if you don't know, we have given ourselves in Oklahoma City a very unique challenge. We are 620 square miles. So as evidenced by the fact that we surround other communities, and their mileage doesn't even count in the 620 that I'm talking about. Boston, for example, as a comparison, has about the same number of people, about a little less than us now, but 660 or so, and they have 70 square miles. So think about that. You're taking the same number of taxpayers, because we're not really not getting any funding typically from any other level of government for our basic needs, our police officers, our street repairs, all that. That's coming from the people who live here. And a city like Boston gets to enjoy the tax proceeds of their 670,000 people to keep up with the needs of 70 square miles, and we have to do 620. And there's just a cost to the way we've chosen to live, and it's not going to change. And there's no real way to affect it, but we do have to talk about it. And people, I think, in the community need to understand that our challenges are quite unique. So when I hear people say, "Why are our streets so bad?" I'm like, it's not rocket science. We chose to live very far apart from each other, which means their roads got to be a little bit longer to get to your house. And somebody's got to pay for that. And so we have finite resources. In 2017, our community put $800 million, new dollars, into road repairs. So, it's happening, and hopefully it's raising the standards a little bit, but it's a lot to keep up with. So how we manage that will continue to be a conversation in the years ahead. And then other aspects of that include transit, right? So public transit has always been kind of an afterthought in Oklahoma City, but it's got a lot more emphasis in the last 15 years. And you're seeing, a lot more interest in improving it. And so we got the grant from the federal government for our first bus rapid transit line. You'll see that start here in a couple years. And, that'll run all the way from downtown up Classen and Northwest Expressway, and will actually go past here all the way to Meridian. And then MAPS 4 funded at least 2 more lines, one to Northeast and one to South Oklahoma City. So you'll see that. And then also the Regional Transit Authority. So that's a gathering of Oklahoma City, Edmond, Norman, Moore, Midwest City, and Del City under a new construction allowed by the state government to really have a new level of government. It's our state's first regional transit authority. They'll come out to the voters sometime probably in the next few years and ask for resources to fund commuter rail transit to those outlying areas south, north, and east. And this hopefully keeps us ahead of the traffic that may be growing in our future with all of these people moving here. We're kind of blessed to have 3 interstates, but at some point we'll max that out, and you're actually starting to see a little bit of a rush hour. I still think people keep it in perspective. Don't complain too much about traffic. Spend an afternoon in Los Angeles, but we're seeing a little bit of that, and we want to stay ahead of it. If we're probably going to drop another 100,000 people in here in the next 10 years, you're going to start seeing some impact from that. So I think those are some of the challenges that come to mind. And I guess even bigger picture, for me, I recognize we're transitioning demographically. 60% of the city under the age of 18 is non-white. We're transitioning politically. It's very purpley now. And so I just feel the burden every day to kind of keep everybody together, and there's everything in American politics trying to pull us apart and trying to make sure we are enemies if we're disagree 1%. And the reality is that we're all humans. We all have the same desires, and there is a lot of common ground that we can find, and that's been our political culture in Oklahoma City for a long time, but we got to double down on it in the face of transition and in the face of national division, and so far so good. I got elected with 78%, Maps 4 passed with 72%. I mean, we're holding that consensus together because the city's basically 50-50 politically. So if anything's getting 70%, that shows that Democrats and Republicans are voting the same way on those days. And I think we're managing that so far so good, and we just got to keep it up. That political culture is very important to Oklahoma City's success. If we ever try to split off into 50-50 camps, which we could, nothing will ever happen. Any other questions?
David, I have one.
Yeah.
And this speaks to your experience on 2030 Lincoln. All of our municipalities are one of the few states where the funding really just comes from sales tax, and it's killing
Right.
smaller municipalities. Is there an appetite to change that?
Probably not. Sorry, I got a 1 o'clock call. Let me just push this real quick. Lost track of time. You've all been very kind to wait here even past 1 o'clock. The legislature, it's really a question for them, and I'd be happy to welcome Marilyn and Tammy and anybody else up to the stage. But I will say, so they did pass an allowance for a little bit of a camel's nose under the tent in the creation of public safety districts. So a community now could go out to the voters and ask for a property tax limited at 5 mills to fund police and fire, and it would have to pass, obviously, by a vote of the people. Did it end up with 60% threshold on top of it? So it's challenging, but not impossible. But 5 mills is like, if I recall, that's like $25 million in Oklahoma City, where we have $1 billion budget. So, I mean, it's not a game changer, but it would help a little bit to have a little bit more diversification in our revenue streams. But as you said, we're the only state in the union where cities have been almost exclusively dependent on sales tax for their operations. We go to the bond issues, as Sonny was just talking about, for our capital needs, so we can tap into property tax for that. But our salaries are, 2/3 of our budget, if not more, and that has to come completely out of sales tax. And as evidenced by the pandemic, that can be a roller coaster.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
David's absolutely right about the size of Oklahoma City. I recently went to Santa Fe, and I had a friend, Debbie, tell me, you need to go to this place and go to this place. And so when I got there, and I asked somebody, where is this? And they said, oh, that's on the other side of town. And I panicked. And then I realized that Santa Fe is like 20 square miles, and there is no other side of town. I mapped it out, and the whole time I traveled in Santa Fe, New Mexico, I effectively never left northwest Oklahoma City. So I'm all for the public transit. I want to thank everybody for coming. I have 2 other thanks that I want to do. One, the advocacy team that put this together. The volunteers and the paid staff, thank you. And finally, thank you all for coming. If you didn't, then we wouldn't have had this, and then it would have just been me standing in front of a camera. And, I may or may not do that, but we don't need to do it today. Thanks for coming, everybody. Bye-bye.